Hello everyone. In this session, we want to talk about Windows Remote Management. With Server 2012 R2, we're able to manage not only the local server, but we're able to manage remote servers. The first thing that we want to check on those remote servers is that remote management is enabled. On the remote server that you want to manage, you want to click on Local Server. And when you click on Local Server, you're going to see Remote Management. Remote Management is always enabled by default. So if you see a question in exam talking about enabling remote management, it means that it would have had to be turned off. If I click on Enabled, we will see the Configure Remote Management box, and we will see that we have the tick there, Enable Remote Management for this server from other computers. To disable this computer for remote management, you would have to remove that tick. But even when remote management is enabled, you still might not be able to manage the remote computer because we have some firewall rules that need to be enabled in order to be able to manage a server or computer remotely from a different local subnet. And we can do that from group policy, or we could do it on the local computer. Now, to enable remote management using Windows PowerShell, let's look at some commands here. We know that we can enable remote management, which is enabled already on the server dashboard, but we can also do it from the PowerShell command. And the command that we should use to enable or disable remote management is configure smremoting.exe get, and you will use enable to enable it, and you would use disable to disable it. So get then displays the current status. Enable will enable Windows Remote Management, and disable will disable remote management. So the command line again is configure-smremoting.exe. So you can do that with Windows PowerShell, or on your dashboard, you would simply click on the link, the enable link, and you will get this configure remote management box. Remember, it is enabled by default. You would have to take off the tick to disable remote management. Only after remote management is enabled that you will be able to manage that server remotely. Now, let us look at the server that we're going to use to connect to a remote computer. The first thing that we need to do after we make sure that remote management is enabled is to add the servers that we want to manage remotely. We click on Manage, Add Servers. Here we have Active Directory DNS Import. For our session, we want to find that server, so we're going to click on Find Now. And we want London Server 1, so we're going to choose London Server 1 from the list. And we're going to click here on this pin to move that London Server 1 over to the computer section. Now we can go ahead and click OK. And you can see that the London Server 1 has been added. So what we did just now was we added the London server 1, which is a remote server, to our server list. On our server, the server that we're going to remotely control the remote computers from. We now want to right click on that remote server. You can see here that you're able to add roles and features to that remote server, just as you would add roles and features to your local server. So we're going to click on add roles and features, and we have the before you begin screen, and we would go through that same process that we would use on our local server. We want to click cancel on the box. This time we want to click on computer management, because we want to manage this computer remotely. When we click on computer management, you will see that you have an error message saying that the server cannot be managed. The server can't be managed because we have not enabled the appropriate Windows firewall rules. If you remember at the beginning of the lesson, we talked about even though the server is enabled for remote management, you might not be able to you might not be able to manage it, that is, until you enable the Windows firewall rules for that server. So you're going to say OK on this box, and this message tells you the same thing: the server cannot be managed, and to enable the appropriate firewall rules on the remote server, you should go into Windows Firewall with Advanced Security. You can do that locally, or you can do it through group policy. We're going to be enabling those rules using group policy. And there are certain rules that you have to enable, and here you have two of them: COM plus network access, and all the rules in the remote event log management group. We're now going to close this computer management box because we want to go into group policy and we want to enable those Windows firewall rules. So we're going to click on Tools, Group Policy Management. We're going to expand the forest, expand domains, and we want the Adatom domain, so we're going to expand that. We want to right click on Adatom and say create a GPO and link it here. The name of the GPO that we're going to give it is Windows Firewall Group Policy. So we're going to type Windows Firewall Group Policy and press enter. Then we can click OK on the new GPO box. Once we have that policy, we're going to right click on the policy and edit it. So we're going to right click and edit. We need to find those firewall rules. So listen carefully. We're going to click Computer Configuration, Policies, Windows Settings, Security Settings, Windows Firewall with Advanced Security. Then over in the left-hand pane, you see Windows Firewall with Advanced Security. Again, you want to expand that. And below it, you see the icon for Windows Firewall. You want to expand that icon. And under it, you will see inbound rules, outbound rules. We want to create an inbound rule. So we're going to right click on the inbound rule and we're going to say new rule. We want this rule to be predefined. So we're going to click on predefined. And we are going to click the down arrow to choose the rule. The rule that we want is COM plus network access. So we're going to click on that rule. and we're going to click next to continue. And we can see the rule here, COM plus network access. So we're going to click next. And we are going to allow the connection. So we want to accept allow the connection and click finish. And we can see the rule here in the pane with the green tick to the left. We now want to enable another rule. So we're going to go back to inbound rules, right click, click on new rule, predefined, click the down arrow, and the rule we want is remote event log management. So we're going to click on that rule. Then we're going to click on next. And we can see the 3 rules here for the remote event log management. So we're going to click next. And we want to accept allow the connection. And we're going to click on finish. And we can see that we have enabled all of those Windows firewall rules. And now, if we went back to the server and we clicked on the server and set computer management, we would then be able to open the computer management for that remote server. So remember, not only do we have to enable remote management in Server Manager, we also have to come and enable the Windows firewall rules for that remote server before we can actually manage that server. That is the end of this session. I want to thank you for listening.